I need to record. Alright, so today we're going to be going over lab safety. You should have been passed this contract. Read over it and get your parents to sign it and bring it back to me. Lab safety is very important. Even if we're not handling dangerous chemicals in this class, when we go into the lab, you need to understand lab safety. We will have a test over this tomorrow, so make sure you read throughout the entire document.
Has anyone ever failed a lab safety test?
Yes, and my policy is make them retake it.
Dang, it's like you failed. I don't know.
Well, I think it was a new student who never took one. Alright, lab safety. So, when I was in college, I took a college version of chemistry. I had a situation where emergency happened. So, if you were to come into this class and there's some salt or sand on your desk, what would you do to it?
Wipe it off.
Wipe it off. So this girl comes into the lab, sits at her table, and sees some white powder and wipes it off. Does anyone know what acidic salt is?
Yes, sir. It like burns through your skin, doesn't
It can, yes.
Can it like be built up in like bad batteries over time?
Yes.
And you take your batteries.
So anyone ever seen The Mummy?
Yeah.
Where they open up the crypt and this sand is blasted and it melts all their skin off?
Yeah.
That's Hollywood. Acidic salt usually doesn't do that. Acidic salt combines with water to make a strong acid. By itself, it's usually safe. But if you put it on your skin, there's a little bit of moisture in your skin. So if you put it on your skin and it stays on your skin, after a while it'll mix with the moisture and water in your skin and you'll start burning and be painful. You'll get some scars. Usually it's a slow process on your skin. If you were to quickly touch it, then wipe it off, you're fine. But if you put it on your skin and leave it there, after about 5 or 10 minutes, your hand will hurt and you'll look and you got yourself a first or maybe a second degree burn. It's very slow acting. Whenever it touches water, it produces a strong acid. So, after she wiped it off with her hand, she had her goggles on and everything, her eye itched. So she lifted up her goggles, took her hand and rubbed it. Your eyes have a lot of water in it. In a few seconds, it took a few seconds, it began to dissolve her eye. She immediately began screaming in pain. Luckily, my professor knew lab safety protocols and immediately what to do. He told everyone, get back, grabbed the woman, took her over to the eye shower, and immediately dumped her head in and started putting water into her eyes. This happened very quickly, but it doesn't take long for acid to start melting your eye, start attacking the cornea. She lost 90 to 95% of her vision for the first 2 or 3 months. She was almost entirely blind in that eye. Because of the quick reaction, because she was quickly rushed to the eye wash, washed all the acid out. Luckily, the eye damage wasn't entirely permanent. After about 2 or 3 months, she regained most of her vision back. She had still lost about 20% of her vision. And I believe, if I heard correctly, after a year of the incident, she had gained back most of all of her vision. But if you get a bad chemical, so even if we're not dealing with chemicals and dangerous chemicals in the class, do note that dangerous chemicals are used in there. You need to know what to do in case of emergency. We go in, you touch something, you accidentally touch your eye, you might accidentally introduce a chemical to your eye that could be destroying your eye. And by using the eye wash station, you can save your eye and prevent permanent blindness. So, objectives are is to recognize safety equipment, including the fire extinguisher, fire blanket, fire aid kit, gas and electrical shutoff valves, emergency exits, eye wash, safety shower, and vent hood. By identifying the piece of equipment, its location and function. First day we go into the lab, I will point out the location of all the safety equipment. I believe y'all have all been in the lab, right? Eye wash is all the way down. Fire blanket is also down there. We have cutoff valves on the right as soon as we walk in. Recognize the appropriate tier by identifying errors and suggesting remedies for the scenario or picture. So, if I said we're going into the lab tomorrow, you should not show up in the lab. You should come to this classroom. You should wait until I say, let's move into the lab. So do not enter the lab without permission. Even if I say we're going into the lab tomorrow, we will still come in here first. I will set up lab stations. Do not go into the lab and immediately start touching stuff. Usually I placed everything in a certain location, and we don't know what other teacher has left stuff out. For example, in my chemistry class, we're going to be dealing with some dangerous chemicals toward the end of the year. I do not have time in 5 minutes between classes to put up the dangerous chemicals. What I've been doing is putting it in the fume hood. But I could accidentally forget something out. I could have a cloth that has highly corrosive stuff on it out. You don't want to go in there and start touching all the beakers. I could have a beaker that looks like it has water in it. There is a container of sulfuric acid that is as clear and looks just like water. However, if I were to pour it onto this piece of paper, if I were to pour it on my shirt, it would immediately melt through my shirt and start putting holes in my person.
I have a piece of paper. Can we do that?
No,
That would be awesome.
we might, toward the end of the year, when we go into the chemistry section, I might go and show some demonstration with acid. The acid is industrial grade. I can't let y'all handle it because y'all are too young and it's too dangerous, but I will demonstrate it in a fume hood of it doing something. We'll get there next semester. Follow all instructions. Be sure to ask questions if you do not understand. Do not conduct any experiments unless you have my permission. Do not be mixing things together if you don't know what will happen when you mix them. Just follow all instructions. When we come to class on lab day, you will leave your backpack inside the classroom. Bringing your backpack inside is a tripping hazard. We will also keep our areas and workstations free of clutter. Know the use of location safety equipment, including the eye wash, fire extinguisher, first aid kit, safety goggles, and aprons. If we are dealing with anything that involves heating up something, or glassware, goggles and aprons must be worn. If we're dealing with chemicals, goggles and aprons must be worn. So eye wash. You must, if you get any chemical in your eye, you must stay under the eye wash for at least 15 or 20 minutes. If any of you ever had a water gun squirted into your eye, it's very difficult to keep your eye open when there's a giant stream of water splashing into your eye. If you have your eyes closed and water's hitting the back of your eyelid, are you washing out the chemical? No. It's doing nothing. It will be very, very uncomfortable. You will sit there with your eyes open. You force them open as water gushes in. It's going to be uncomfortable. But if you like the ability to see, if you do not want to lose your eye, you have to do it. If some chemicals are spilled on you, some of them will seep through your clothes and get on your skin and start burning you. It will be very unfortunate, but you will have to go under the shower and stay there and wash it off. Acid spills on you. It's not like a fire where if you get away from it, or it's not going after a few minutes, it's not going to evaporate and go away. It's going to stay burning you until it's gone, or it's burned all the way through you. You have to sit there until you wash all the acid away. In the event there's a spill like that, I will ask everyone to go out in the hallway, because you're going to be completely soaked up with water falling on you. I will try to give you some privacy while we do, and send some people to the office to notify the nurse. But unfortunately, if in that event, you will have to stay under the shower until we get all the chemical off of you. Fire extinguishers. Did anyone ever use a fire extinguisher? So, there's a little tiny pin. It's very obvious. It's a safety pin. It kind of looks like the pin on a grenade. You pull it, and then you point the hose at a safe direction, and you can squeeze the handle. Do note that fire extinguishers don't exactly put out fire. What they do is they reduce the oxygen around whatever's burning, and starves the fire of oxygen until it goes out. What this means is that if you have like a giant big bonfire and you take CO2 and point it at the top of the flames, it'll do nothing. What you're wanting to do is stop the fire, whatever's causing the fire. You want to point it at the base of the fire. So in the case of a bonfire, you point it directly at the wood. Fire extinguishers, most of them are CO2 based. CO2 will rise up into the air. So if you point it directly in the middle of the fire, it will not reach the bottom. First aid kit contains bandages and burn cream. So burn cream has lidocaine in it, which will reduce the pain. If you've ever had a severe burn, you know it's painful. They also usually have chemicals in there that will reduce scarring. Burns can produce permanent scars. Also help with antibiotics and stuff like that. Also, a fire extinguisher. Again, it robs the environment of oxygen, robs the fire so it can't gain oxygen to continue burning. Do not spray anyone on fire who's on fire with a fire extinguisher. It will steal all the oxygen from around them, and they won't be able to breathe. Fire blanket. So if there is a small fire or a person's on fire, we can throw a fire blanket on someone and pat them down. Don't take the fire blanket, put it around their head, and then smother them. Shouldn't have to explain that. Exits. So if we have to leave in case of emergency, so if something happened and we have to use an eye station, I need to clear y'all from the deal, y'all go into the hallway or go toward the office. If we have to evacuate the school, we will go toward the cafeteria and go out by the cafeteria exit. So, question. How would you decide whether to use a fire extinguisher, fire blanket, or shower to put out a fire?
Whenever, like, a person's on fire, you use the fire blanket.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever there's just a fire, you use fire extinguisher.
What about the shower?
If the shower's on fire?
Well, when would you use the shower to put out a fire?
If your hair's on fire or something? I don't know.
Usually a chemical fire.
Yeah.
So if a chemical is reacting with your shirt or your skin and causing that to react, obviously a fire blanket is not going to do anything. You put a fire blanket, it doesn't have oxygen, it doesn't burn. You remove the fire blanket, it catches right back on fire. I'm sure have y'all ever seen the birthday candles?
Yes.
Where you blow them out. So you temporarily starve of oxygen while you blow it out. And because of the chemistry involved, it recatches on fire.
Yeah.
How do you get them out? Is you run it over some water to stop the reaction. Again, never use fire extinguisher on someone. Some chemicals, which we won't use because they're dangerous, some of the chemicals react with water. and you can't use the shower to put someone out, and unfortunately you can't really use a fire blanket. Usually what you do in that case is try to use the fire blanket, but know that as soon as you remove it, they might catch back on fire, but we won't be dealing with that. No food, gums, or drinks in the lab. So, there are some chemicals that are completely safe to touch, or relatively safe to touch. For example, hand sanitizer. You're all putting it on your skin. It helps. It kills bacteria. It kills viruses. It does this by destroying the cell wall. We aren't plants, nor are we bacteria, nor are we viruses. Our cells do not have cell walls, so it does nothing to us. However, if you drink hand sanitizer, it is highly poisonous. In fact, the CDC has released a statement that because the demand of hand sanitizer is so high and companies are trying to produce as much hand sanitizer as possible, they asked...
Any remaining 11th grade that need the schedule change to come to the office at this time, please. 11th graders that still need the schedule change, come to the office, please.
They actually have detected that hand sanitizers have methanol in them. So if you know anything about the production of alcohol, when you try to make ethanol, you usually always make methanol. Methanol and alcohol are very similar, except for methanol is highly poisonous. If you ingest it, a small amount will cause permanent blindness. A slightly more than smaller amount will be lethal. And they notice that they've been whenever they're making the alcohol for the hand sanitizer, the levels of methanol are too high, which means chances are, yes?
Do you have an extra eraser for the whiteboard I can borrow?
I only have the one.
Can I use it and give it back to you?
Yes. So currently they've been detecting in a lot of hand sanitizers methanol, which means a lot of kids they've been reporting because of, I think, something Trump said about ingesting hand sanitizer to kill COVID. People who have been drinking hand sanitizer and putting it in their mouth have been going blind and dying.
Well, I heard that since the alcohol companies started making, instead of putting it towards like alcohol and liquor, they started making, like some of the vodka companies started making hand sanitizer
Yes.
instead of it, and some people thought it was vodka and drank it like it was
Yep.
vodka, and then they
So,
died.
whenever you make, quick little history lesson. When you make moonshine, you have to distill the alcohol to separate methanol out of it. So when you make moonshine, you actually make methanol and ethanol. Ethanol is the chemical you drink, it's safe, relatively. Methanol is highly poisonous, and you have to separate them out because both are produced equally. Methanol is still good. Methanol has almost the exact same properties as ethanol, other than it's highly toxic. Which means methanol can be used to kill germs on your hand too. But any ingestion of it is dangerous. So do not bring food in, because there are certain chemicals that it's fine to touch, fine to do chemistry with, but if you accidentally put it on your food, it could kill you. Report all accidents and spills to the teacher immediately. So we used to do blood tests at the school way back when, and what if you is for biology to figure out what blood type you were. All it is we have a little machine like a diabetic machine. It sends a needle. It gives a single drop of blood, and then we run it through this little card. This card will eventually soak it up and tell you what blood you are, what blood type you are. This one girl didn't tell the teacher that she had a clotting disorder. That whenever she gets cut, she doesn't stop bleeding. And a few hours later, after the fifth band-aid was full of blood, she decided to go to the nurse. They eventually had to take her to the hospital because she was losing a lot of blood. Wouldn't stop bleeding. If you get any cuts and scratches, there are some chemicals that, like I said, are safe on your skin, but toxic if they get inside the wound. So you need to tell me if there's any small emergencies. So chemicals have different properties, and the safety of them can depend. Snake venom, for example. What would happen if you had like a shot of rattlesnake venom and you drank it?
Might get you die.
So if you have no cuts in your stomach, no ulcers, snake venom is not poisonous. It's venomous. It's a toxin. If you were to take a shot of rattlesnake venom, you would have an upset stomach, but you would probably live as long as you didn't have any cuts inside you. It wouldn't be the most comfortable experience, as you're not supposed to drink snake venom, but it wouldn't kill you. However, if you get it inside a wound, or if you get it inside your veins, it could kill it could kill you. In an emergency, call my name and come get me. So we're right next to Miss Tomlin, who sings biology. She might have some living organisms or some biological materials that are being preserved. I know there's a pig's heart in there. Do not play with anything in there that's been living. Treat everything with respect. It was at one point a living creature. Do not cause harm to any living specimens. Don't shake or damage. Whenever lab is over, you are not dismissed. You need to clean up after yourselves. When you are done cleaning up your table, then you tell me and I'll check, and if your table is all clean, then I'll dismiss you back in here. So when everyone at your table is ready to be dismissed, raise your hand. Make sure you push in chairs. Dispose of lab materials properly. Do not put anything down sinks without prior permission. So, my grade, when I was in high school, I went to this school. I graduated in 2007. I think it was during our 10th grade, maybe 11th grade year. It wasn't my class, but it was my class, but it wasn't my period. It was the period after me. They had dumped some chemicals down the sink. We didn't find out about it until the next morning when the bathrooms were overflowing. And we lost water to the school for 1 to 2 weeks. It was almost 2 weeks without bathrooms, without water fountains. It was very unpleasant as we couldn't go to the bathroom all day. Do not put anything down the sink, because there are pipes connected to all the water, and you could break the piping system at the school. And because all the pipes are underneath the school, it is very hard to get down underneath the building and fix it. Broken glass. Do not put any broken glass in the trash can. Glass is very, very sharp. We do not want Miss Bambi to come in, take the trash bag out, and have the glass rip a hole in the trash bag and have glass shards spread all over the floor. It should be thrown in a cardboard box marked with sharps for glass. No horseplaying or fooling around. I take lab safety very serious. If you are horseplaying, fooling around in the lab, I will ban you from the lab for the rest of the year. On lab day, instead of joining the rest of the class in the lab, you will go to the office or ISS room, and you will write a very long document stating what you hoped to have learned in the lab if you could participate, what the expectation was, and I will make it as unpleasant as possible and grade it, while everyone else receives a free 100. So, looking at your contract, wash your hands. There's going to be some dangerous chemicals. You do not want to be handling chemicals and then grabbing food later. As I said, some chemicals, they go in your skin. They're not immediately dangerous. As long as you quickly get them off and wash them off, they're fine. But if you let some chemicals stay on your skin for several hours, it causes burns. Fire drills. So very important. This building is for the most part flame retardant. What that means is If a fire were to break out, it's not going to immediately catch up in 5 minutes. This whole building will not burn in 5 minutes. We do have carpet and drywall, but usually fire cannot spread through the school really, really fast. Now then, if we're in the lab and we're using the Bunsen burner, so we're having natural gas being in the room. Home ec classroom, burn up a cake. The fire alarm goes out. Should we immediately run out with all the gas still running inside the room? You'll blow up the school. So if a fire alarm were to go off in the lab, you are not dismissed to leave. Unless there is clear and present danger, unless you see a fire and smoke billowing up and you believe that your life is immediately at risk, do not leave the lab. You will leave whenever I dismiss you. Fire will not spread that quickly. We will need to go through the turning off everything, making sure everything's safe, and we will leave. We will leave by going toward the cafeteria in that direction and go out there. Another thing on the topic of fire drills, if we're in this normal classroom and we have a fire drill, you are not allowed to go outside yet. Unless you see smoke bellowing and you see this wall burst into flames, you are relatively safe. You should not be immediately rushing out of the classroom. We talk about this every year, but as you are aware, there are school shootings. There are people who will go into a school and start shooting people. One of the things that people have noticed is a lot of people like to pull the fire alarm because it causes all the students to rush out in the hallway. You stand at one end of the hallway and you can fire down and get a lot of people. When a fire alarm goes out, we will go away from the door, line up. I will stick my head out, I will look down, and I'm going to let a few classes go first. Again, it's not going to... Oh yeah. My students, my class is more important than the rest. But we will sit there and wait and see if it's safe. If I believe, unless there's fire immediately, unless this entire hallway's out, and I think that if we wait any second longer, the fire's going to rush us. Unless that happens, we're going to wait a little bit and test it. And then we'll go down to the cafeteria and go out that way. Goggles and aprons. So if we deal with any glassware, any chemicals, any heat, we must wear goggles and aprons. Contacts. Anyone wear contacts? All right. Have you ever played with super glue? Anyone ever played with super glue? Have your eyes ever itched or messed up after handling super glue? All right. So super glue is highly volatile. How super glue works, cyanoacetate, is it bonds with water. So when you open it up, the reason why it's still a liquid inside the bottle is there's no water in there. When you open it up and close it, you might notice white around the entrance of it because there's moisture in the air. Whenever you put it on something, you'll notice that around wherever you're super glued, there's a white line around it. That's because it evaporates really, really fast. And when it evaporates, it mixes with water. It's the reason why if you get it on your skin, it immediately turns solid because we're mostly water. Another thing is because it's so volatile, meaning it produces a gas and evaporates, is that if you put your head over it, it will actually get into your eyes. Eyes have a lot of water content. And if you ever played with super glue and used it, you might notice that your eyes get slightly irritated. Normally this is an issue because it's so small. However, if you wear contacts, it can super glue the contact to your eyeball. So, I just keep in mind that some chemicals, you need to pay attention. Some chemicals like acid can dissolve the contact into your eye. So if you wear contacts, make sure you're wearing goggles. Clothes and hair. No long sleeve shirts in the lab. If you have a jacket I prefer you take it off, but roll up at least. Hair. If you have long hair, needs to be tied back. One of the number one things I see people do is lean over a table and their hair drags on the table and it soaks up all the chemicals on the table. Long sleeve shirts, I see a lot of people, you shouldn't be touching and putting your arm on the table. But what's the problem with hair and long sleeve shirts is that they like to soak up a lot of chemicals. Hair is also extremely flammable. Has anyone ever had their hair catch on fire? So hair is so flammable that it burns so quickly that it can't catch the rest of the hair on fire. If you were to take a strand of hair and take it up to a ladder, you'll see it like a little short fuse. It'll go, burn, and then stop. If you were to take and drift some of your hair over to it, your entire hair can immediately catch on fire. And it's like burns just like that. It'll be a flash fire, and you can cause a lot of damage. So you need to have it tied back. I will always tell you a day in advance when we're having a lab. So you need to have something somehow to get your hair tied back. Also, no sandals in the lab. You don't want things spilling onto your foot. Eye wash, again, 15-20 minutes. Smelling and touching chemicals. So, y'all know the wafting method? So, in my speech class in college, I decided, because I'm a science person, that I'd give a speech on how to do hydrolysis of water. Basically, taking H2O water and breaking it into hydrogen gas and oxygen gas by electricity. In order for water to conduct electricity, it needs an electrolyte. I chose the most common electrolyte there is, table salt. Table salt has sodium and chloride. During the electrolysis of water, it produces chlorine gas. Chlorine is what the Nazis used to kill millions of people. Whenever it's in gas form and you breathe it in, it produces hydrochloric acid in your lung. Hydrochloric acid dissolves your lung material and it causes you to suffocate, drown on blood and basically lung tissue. But it doesn't produce that much, which means it's safe enough to do hydrolysis in a room, as long as you don't put your nose directly over it. But I'm standing next to my professor, and I tell her, you can smell the chlorine being produced. It smells like a swimming pool. It's relatively safe. However, she leaned forward and put her nose over the bottle and took a deep breath. She leaned back and temporarily passed out as her lungs seized up, stopped working, and blocked all of her oxygen. She stumbled backward. It was only for a split second. She was able to recover, but it almost ended badly. If you smell a chemical not doing it properly, you could lose consciousness, fall back, and bust your head on the table. So, broken glass. Do not pick up broken glass with your hands. You'll need to use a broom. Do not put broken glass in trash bags. They need to be in a cardboard box. Electrical equipment. Has anyone ever been electrocuted? By how much wattage would you say? How much power?
I was using an electric blender.
You got struck by lightning? That's a little brief. But I mean, it's bad. But has anyone ever touched a live wire?
Well, when I was plugging in one of my phone chargers one time, I had the phone, so I plugged it in, my two fingers was all yeah.
He broke my charger and then put two prongs straight into the wall.
So,
and then I did
so let me explain.
That was like a few years ago when I did that.
Let me explain. So, has anyone taken AMP?
what?
Anatomy and physiology. All right. So, we have an electrical system. Basically, your brain cells or muscles to contract by sending electricity down to it and causing the muscles to contract. If you were to grab a live wire, let's say you touch the end of the prong as you go in, your hand will immediately close up. And because you're no longer touching it, you get shock and you pull your hand away. Now let's say that we have a wire, and we touch it like this.
Oh, you can't. It's like you.
Your hand will make the most hardest fist you've ever made in your entire life as you grab this thing. Your entire body will be paralyzed. You will be in the most intense pain you've have ever experienced. Worse than anything you ever imagined. And the entire time, you're going to be watching your hand catch fire. You're going to watch your hand turn black as your hand is being charred to a crisp. And you're going to be paralyzed and in entire pain the entire way you die.
Is that what, like, when you get electrocuted, people have to, like, hit them off of the thing?
Yes, that's what I was going to get at. So, do not touch anyone who's being electrocuted. You will just join on. In fact, the only way you really die by electrocution is if the electricity goes through your heart. And so, when dealing with high-powered, dangerous electricity, a lot of people will put their left hand behind their back and work one-handed. They don't want to rest it on a table. They don't want to do that. They want to work one-handed. If someone is being electrocuted and you come up and put your hand on their right side, first of all, you're paralyzed too. Second, you just made electricity go through their heart and you just killed that person in front of you. But the electricity is keeping their muscles up so they won't immediately fall to the ground dead. But you're over here unable to move. You just killed the person and you're unable to move as you're about to die too. We had on the wall when I was at A&M a long stick. Basically, we need wood doesn't cut electricity, so you push them off. If you need to, you hit them. In the event we don't have access to a stick or anything that's non-conductive to hit them, do not go and push them.
I've seen people take their shirt off and wrap it around their...
That's one good way. My suggestion is a running tackle. Because as soon as you run and hit them, you're paralyzed. But at the same time, as long as you're running, your momentum will carry you forward. Do not pull, so we will be using microscopes. That current in the wall is way more than enough to cause this. So if you were to plug up a microscope by the cord and then pull it out, what you could do is pull the plastic out and you'll be wrapping around the metal. So never do it against the wire. So never grab something by the wire and pull it out. Grab it by the end piece and pull it out like that. Chipped glassware. So we have some shatterproof glassware. It is designed to be able to resist breaking and shattering in high temperatures. How it works is the glass is tempered, meaning that the atoms, the glass molecules are being stretched. If there is a single crack, if there's a chip, the glass is no longer safe. And when you heat up that Pyrex glassware that has a chip and a crack, chances are it's going to explode. And the glass moves at high velocity, which means if you're not wearing an apron, it can go through your clothes and stab you. If you're not wearing goggles, it'll go into your eye. And if you have, I don't know if you know this, if you get glass in your eye, it is super hard for a surgeon to get it out. It's transparent. It's floating in water in your eye. And they can't see it. You might lose an eyeball. Hot glassware. Glass stays hot for a long time. You heat it up, you can't tell it's hot. It doesn't glow, it doesn't do anything. So you heat it up, 5-10 minutes later you come back and you go and touch it. You might get a 1st or 2nd degree burn in your hand. And it really sucks to burn the tips of your fingers. So you use the right width. Heating test tubes. You should treat a test tube like a cannon or a gun. You should have seen that when you're doing a chemical reaction, that there could be bubbles that form that stop it, and then pressure builds up and it can squirt all the way out. Always point it in a safe direction. Never point a test tube towards you. Now, always have people go, well, all right, I know, don't point toward me, and they turn it to the right and point to toward their partner. Be mindful of where it's pointing. Do not point it toward yourself Don't point toward anyone else. Alright, so what's wrong with this image?
Oh my god. Everything.
Broken glass, chemical on the floor, long sleeve.
So not keeping the work place tidy.
Hair's not up, there's a.
Hair is up, but she's not wearing goggles. There's been a spill that needs to be taken care of. Tangled cord. Whole lot of things wrong. No one's tending to the burner. If we're using a burner, someone has to be there. You do not walk away from the up and flame. What's going on? Going wrong here?
He's drinking in the lab.
So how many people say he's drinking it?
Smelling it.
Oh,
See, every year, 50-50. I think whenever I look at this, he's smelling it. But half of everyone else thinks he's drinking it. It does kind of look like a cup of coffee, and he's about to drink it. But his lips are closed, and it looks more like he's smelling it. Again,
He's doing something wrong.
also, he's not wearing an apron and goggles. And he's trying to multitask. He's trying to pour something down the sink at the same time as handling another beaker. What is this student doing wrong?
Hair's not up.
The hair's not up.
And she's not wearing an apron.
Yeah, and the sleeves.
No sleeves. Our sleeves should be pulled up. Hair's not on. I think I see, yep, she's handling glassware, so she needs a goggles and apron. What is this person doing wrong?
He knows what he's doing, he's just looking at something and he's like,
Eating and drinking.
Eating.
I mean, yeah.
He doesn't have any glassware, so he doesn't need goggles, but he's eating. No eating in the lab. What are they doing wrong? So they have a Bunsen burner. I don't know if you've ever used the striker, the light Bunsen burner. One student is trying to light it. The other student has a flask that they're about to set on it. They're dealing with fire, heat, and glassware. They need goggles and an apron. All right. So we're going to have a test over this tomorrow. Read it, study it, get your parents to sign it. All right. So how many of y'all have signed up for Google Classroom? I'm looking at the list and I only have like 6 people. So Tristan, Elena, Tyler, Martin, Cody, General, Michael, Thomas, Amanda.
At this time, I need any 10th grade student that needs a schedule change, A through M, last name A through M. 10th grade student that needs a schedule change, please come to the office.
So if you have your phone and can go do it, go ahead and set the invite. That's it for today.